Hey everyone, my name is Carly Ledbetter. Although I just got married, so on LinkedIn, you might see my name as Carly Buckmiller. I am a visual storyteller on Team Xbox with our marketing team. And through my job, I've been here for 3 years. My role is mostly designing PowerPoints for Gaming Summit or other infographics for our data team. And those can get sent out to multiple different audiences or stakeholders. So today I'm going to talk to you about how to create a compelling PowerPoint presentation based on who your audience is and the best way to represent your findings or whoever your client is, whatever you're talking about. We're going to get to the bottom of it and figure out the best way to share your information. So today we're going to go through how to tell a compelling story through accessibility, which is a lot of the times color contrast, text sizing. Then we're going to also talk about visual design, how to find great assets, and infographic design, different types of data tables, charts, how to manipulate those. And then lastly, animation and video. So how we can tell our stories through motion and how that can add to our presentations. So for accessibility, we want to make sure that we're using concise headers. And with concise headers, what I mean by that is minimal words. So you can see for this concise header, we're only using 4 words. And if you go to your home section on PowerPoint, you can see that the size is actually 24. The reason why that's important is because accessibility standards say that your text should be a minimum of 16-point font. So let's check and make sure that's what we have. Okay, it's 20. So the reason why this is important is because in presentation mode, usually if you do anything less than 16, it can be unreadable. So let's make it a lot smaller. While that can often look nice, it's really unreadable for a lot of people. So it's best just to keep it at a minimum of 16. And then secondary to that, we're going to use this example area over here, and I'm going to show you some ways to be mindful of your text sizing on a background, as well as the color of your text on a specific colored background as well. So while black and white is very nicely contrasted, we often do see background colors of black with text as white. That's great too. But sometimes our jobs require us to have interesting background colors, like this template, for instance, has purples and oranges. So I will use this orange as an example. You can see that with white text, it's a little hard to read. So a better option would probably be black or something that offers more contrast. And then if you're unsure of if this actually is up to accessibility standards, PowerPoint offers a really interesting way to check that. So you can go up to review and then check accessibility. And then this tab pops up over on the right-hand side, and you can actually see all of these things. So sometimes it's a little confusing. I admit I get confused sometimes looking through all of these, but it's really helpful just for guidelines. So you can say, okay, yeah, the rectangle is wrong, and these are all misaligned because we'll get to that later on how to realign elements. But you can also check reading orders. So that way when you have like a voice reading back what's on the slide, you can actually choose how the computer reads to people who have a visual impairment. Okay, so now the last thing that I want to go over with accessibility is how to sectionalize your document. Because usually these, you don't really think about sectionalizing your document as an important thing, but with huge decks where you're dealing with a lot of different teams, like my team, for instance, we deal with PC, Game Pass, console, like so many different teams. So it's really cool being able to come over to the side here and actually tab different areas of your presentation. That way, as a presentation designer or a PM, you're able to easily find and access one whole section. And how you do that is you right click on a slide and you can say add section, or if you're like, oh my gosh, I messed up, this doesn't need to be a section, you can right click on the section title and you can just remove the section. That will just remove it all together. And if you accidentally delete it, Control Z. So next we'll go into visual design. And I actually studied graphic design in college, so these are my roots. This is super fun to think about how to find supporting visual elements. So what you want to do if your client comes to you and says, just make this thing, I don't really have any assets for you, sorry, but you're gonna talk about our business metrics for the next fiscal year. You say, okay, sounds good. So what you do is you can go up to Insert and you go to Icons. And actually, Microsoft has all these amazing icons that I leverage all the time for internal decks. It's so great. You can type in business, and then it'll give you all these different business things. Or if you want to talk about sustainability, you can type in, let's see if it even has a sustainability. There you go. So it shows you all these different icons for sustainability or plants. So you can find fun ways to show green energy. But if you're wanting to find an image, PowerPoint also offers the way to find images too. Same thing, you just type in a descriptive word and you can paste in cool pictures. So, plant. Okay, let's do this person gardening. And you can insert. That's pretty cool. I use that all the time, especially for visual metaphors when we're doing a lot of presentations where I don't have access to assets right away. Otherwise, first and foremost, absolutely use the assets that are relevant to what you're presenting and strive to talk to agencies or partners who can offer you assets. Because if you can dig deep and actually find the relevant assets to the program you're talking about that people haven't really seen yet, but it's still visible and allowed to be shared, that's cool. Okay, so now let's go over element alignments and the grid use. So you can see with this slide, this already came with a template, and I thought it was a great example to show how it aligns with PowerPoint's grid. So how you see the grid is you go up to View and then Grid Lines. PowerPoint offers this way, and you can see how your elements are lining up. You can see that this element over here is perfectly aligned with the side margin. And whenever I'm doing this, I try to think about keeping all my information within the boundaries of the inner squares. So I try to leave any important information to the inside, but if there's like a footer or maybe a tiny logo, then that's okay to put outside the margins. So everything's good on this slide. We can see that this text box is all within these outer lines of the grid. This picture bleeds off the edge, but that's okay. Then next, we're going to talk about aligning elements. So if you get a deck and you're like, oh my gosh, things are all mismatched and misaligned. I've got titles that are just like not even lined up. How do I fix this? So first, you select all of the pictures, and I usually do just left click and then control, and that allows me to click everything. And then you can come up here to arrange, align, and then top. So that's great. And then if you're unsure if the spacing between elements is the same, you do the same thing. You click all of them and do arrange, align, and you can do distribute horizontally. So then it perfectly aligns everything to be the same. Same thing for the titles. Okay, perfect. Now, let's make sure that all of these are centered too. Looks like they are, but if you're unsure, you click both of these elements and you do arrange, align, align center. That makes sure that those two elements are centered. Okay, cool. That's our team. No, it's not. It's just a template, but that's okay. All right. So the second or the third thing that we'll talk about is how much text is too much text. Let me tell you, I'm in a master's program right now, and it had the worst lecture slides. It was like 30 slides all looking like this, talking about finance and math. And as a creative person, I was so bored. I had no retention. Like, this is so boring. Who wants to even read this? No one, and no one will. So what you want to do is you want to take away text that's irrelevant, and if it can be put in talk track, put it there, because you want to make sure that what's on your slide is exactly the information that you want your audience to take away. It needs to just be so straightforward. The second slide is a better example of how to balance imagery to text. And you can see over here that I use paragraph spacing. Some people like to use bullet points. That's great too. And quick side note, if you want to have the bullet points be a little more close to the left alignment, I'm not sure what that's called, but you just drag this little guy over there and you can actually change the spacing between your bullet points. So you don't have to do anything fancy. You literally just change the spacer there. So that's kind of cool. But anywho, so I already showed you how to find images, so we won't have to go over that again. But same thing, if you want to swap these pictures out, just go up to the Insert tab and Icons, and then go to different images. But ultimately, you want to be punchy. You want to keep your information to a minimum on your slides. However, if you are going to be emailing out your presentation deck, you definitely need to check with your client and what kind of stakeholders you're working with, because maybe they do need a little more information on the slides themselves, especially if it's going to get printed out as a PDF or a hard copy in certain situations. Okay, so second to last section, infographic design. Oh my gosh, this is a little tricky for some people if you're like me and your images, words, yay, but data? Ugh, how do we show data? Okay, so there's a couple different ways that we can think about data. Either it's time growth, which is great for line charts or bar charts, or there's comparison, which we usually see with tables. So you can either do tables with comparison, or you can do relevancy, which we'll get into later. I did this fun bubble graph. And some of these are pre-instilled in PowerPoint, or you can make your own. So we'll get into that. And then roadmaps, I usually like to use timelines. Okay, so for the line chart, you can actually, PowerPoint is really awesome. And if you don't have an Excel document that you're pulling data from already, your client says, hey, I need you to make a chart. And you're like, oh my gosh, okay, just to show, whatever you're analyzing. You go up to chart here after the insert chart, and there's all these options. So that's where I had inserted this line chart. You can do line, there's all kinds of different line charts. Okay, and then it'll insert it. And you can actually change your data in this tab that pops up through Excel. Super handy and useful if you need to have a quick representation. Next, the other option is bar charts. We see this a ton. So same thing, you can insert a bar chart, change the data, and this is great for comparing, 3 different products, let's say, like how are these comparing over time? So if we do, let's say, PC gaming versus console gaming versus mobile gaming, like how many users do we have over the, years 1, 2, 3, and 4, something like that. Really interesting. And then we can also compare with tables. I know a lot of times we do love tables because this is where the focus is purely on the numbers, not so much on the growth or the sustenance, but more so on, okay, how are we actually doing year over year? What are we doing compared to other programs? And then little side note, once again, be aware of the accessibility here. So make sure that your colors can easily be read by people who are colorblind or who may just have difficulty seeing things on screens because maybe it's really zoomed out, or maybe they're on their phone and they can't see it up close and big. So in this case, quick switch, you highlight it, make it black. I know it doesn't look the best all the time, but you can also fix that by making everything else black. This one though, kind of hard to see, so let's change that too. That can be white. Okay, so the next way, this is a fun chart, and this actually wasn't pre-made through PowerPoint. I just made this for fun. So I'm going to ungroup these, and you can actually just make circles. And if you know roughly the data comparison, you can actually just change the sizing of circles or squares, whatever you want. It could be stars. And it's a fun way to integrate information in a way that's showing scale or fun. I don't know, like just anything you want. And then you can also think about it too, where if you want to include pictures, let's say I want to include cats versus dogs, like how many people like cats? So you can go and find a picture of a cat. Cute. I have 2 cats at home, 2 Maine Coons, and you can crop it as a shape. So let's do a circle. And to fix the ovalness, you literally just fix the cropping and make it a circle. There we go. Okay, and then we'll find a dog image. Dog. Cute. Okay. This is a fun way too. First and foremost, if you can find actual images portraying your information, that is the way to go. But if you don't have pictures or it's too complex, there's maybe too many variables, then you can absolutely just use regular shapes and colors. Anyway, so let's say, if there's way more cat people, make the cat big, make the dog small, things like that. Yeah, okay. And then let's see here. So for roadmap slides, I know we always make roadmaps for our jobs. Maybe not always, but I know I do, especially for products. It's like, okay, what are we launching? What's coming up? So a great way to do roadmaps is either the pre-made versions that the sorry, there's like someone knocking at my door. Anyways, but there's ways to do the pre-made ones through PowerPoint. Or you can literally just make your own by inserting different shapes too. So you can do like a line and then add tick marks. So let's copy one of these circles here. Control C, Control V. Okay. So yeah, I could literally just copy and make my own little roadmap. And then same thing, don't worry about it being perfectly spaced at first because of that little trick we talked about earlier where you can fix the alignment through the arrange tool. Boom, there you go. So you can even do a roadmap like this. This is great. And then just have a line coming up, talk about the copy, maybe add a picture, add dates, information, super great. And then if you want to add, well, this is perfect transition for animation. You can highlight all of your elements, Control G, which is group. You can add an animation, and I usually like to do wipe. Then you go and change it, make sure it's from the left or whatever direction your information is going. That way, when you go to the next slide, your actual roadmap will build out in that way and show you, we're moving this way, this is our road. So it's really cool. Okay, so it's a perfect transition to talk about our animation and video. This is the cream of the crop, people. I love using animations and videos when possible. Now, just having Teams and online presentations, it can be a little glitchy sometimes, so be wary of that. Make sure that your file isn't too large where it could be lagging, or sometimes the animations or videos that we use are super blurry. But I'm going to show you how to insert a video from YouTube. And then also I'm going to show you how to utilize Giphy, which is a great resource for GIFs. And lots of pop culture options are on Giphy. And then also slide transitions and elements, because those things are great too. And how to intentionally use slide transitions and elements in a way that actually adds to the story rather than distract. Okay, so how to embed an online video. So you can right click. This is a link that I found on the recent Xbox Elite controller. So what you do is you open up YouTube, whatever video you want. You can see my music tastes over there. Very fun. Okay, control copy. And then we'll go back to our presentation. And I want to insert my video over here. So what you do is you have to go to the Insert tab, and then you go to Video over here on the right, and then you click Online Videos. If the video is on your device already, though, you can do this device and you can find it in your folders. But since this is from YouTube, I go Online, and then in this web address bar, just Control V. Oh, wait. There we go. Okay, insert. Boom, there it is. Okay, so great. Looks like it's maybe a little bit blurry, but oh no, never mind. It's all good. Okay, so then what you want to do is if you want this to play automatically once the slide transition occurs, then you go to playback and you can do either start in the click sequence, which means you have to click for it to start, or you can do automatically. That's pretty fun. And I think that's all you can do for a YouTube video. But if you actually have like a hard copy video, you can do a lot more editing with it. You can do like a fade in, fade out. You know, you can adjust the volume. You can adjust if you want it to be looped or rewind after playing. Tons of cool options. Okay, and then next we're gonna show how to use GIFs, which are really fun animated visuals. It's like a picture, but it moves. So we'll do Giphy. I already found this GIF. It's an Xbox One. So let's say I want to include this in my presentation because it just adds a little bit more motion and it catches the eye, keeps the audience engaged, but it's not too distracting like a video could be. So you literally just copy the image because a GIF is technically an image, and then be careful when pasting a GIF on a PowerPoint because if you just do Control V, it'll be, oh, actually that actually works. But if you just paste it as a picture, it'll be a plain picture, it won't move. So you need to do Control V or right click and keep formatting. That way you can see that it moves still. So keep that in mind. Okay, and then for intentional slide transitions and element animations, you already saw a little tidbit of adding animations to the roadmap earlier, which is the left to right. But however, you can add slide transitions. My go-to is using fade. Everything in this deck has a fade. But there is a way to storytell through motion through the morph tool, which is really interesting. So I'm going to go to presentation mode and show you. So you can see here, you can't see the bison, but if I go to the next slide, he comes into the screen. And this is purely through a slide transition. This is not through an element animation, which is really nice. A lot of the time we can see people moving animations using, you go up here, they use animations and they use these motion paths. I refrain from using these only because they can get kind of messy and you have to be super exact of where it begins and ends. So I usually just like to do a float, like a float in or a fade, or I do a slide transition morph. That is my preferred choice. And then if I go to the next slide, here's another way that you can add some motion. And then if you go to the next slide, you can see that you can have a fun float in with all your bubbles or something like that. It just adds a little extra movement. That way it's a little more graceful and you can really see the content in a way that's more eye captivating. So yeah, that was only a little bit of what you can do in PowerPoint. But please reach out to me. Here's my email, carly_ledbetter@hotmail.com, or find me on LinkedIn. If you need support in presentation design, there's so much more that you can do that I did not cover today just because there's so much to talk about. But yeah, there's so much that you can do with PowerPoint. Even if you want to get nitty gritty and you don't have Photoshop, there's actually ways to cut and paste and manipulate things in PowerPoint that is honestly similar to Photoshop that I just figured out. So yeah, I didn't want to get too much into it today because I know that that'd be a little overwhelming, but let me know. Thank you so much for listening in. And I can't wait to connect with you and see what kind of creations you make and what kind of stories you tell. Thanks, everyone.